What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, publisher and lead editor of Ducks Digest, covering the Oregon Ducks for Sports Illustrated over on Fan Nation. Big breaking news episode. I guess it's not breaking right now because it's 12:30 in the morning as I record this, but big news for the Ducks and Dan Lanning out on the recruiting trail, and that is a big commitment. Ducks landing the commitment of 2023 Valley Christian wide receiver Jurrion Dickey out of East Palo Alto, California. And I just wanted to hop on here and break down what this commitment means for Oregon. Some cool thoughts that I got from Jurian speaking with him after his commitment. I was on scene as I'm back home out in the Bay Area to cover that commitment. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's episode, couple favors to ask of you guys, pretty simple ones. Ask that you smash that like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and then also like and subscribe to the podcast on the podcasting platform of your choice. Some common ones you can find us on include Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher. But with all that being said, let's break down this commitment, what we heard from Jurian after the commitment, and what it means for Oregon football both now and in the future, as we do with every commitment. I shouldn't say everyone because I was a little busy and I didn't get to dive into the recent commitment of the Minnesota running back. So apologies for that. But let's talk about Jurrion Dickey. He commits to Oregon over competing offers, a top five, I should say, of UCLA, USC, Washington, and Penn State. Just to kind of get people up to speed on the timeline, Dickey was in Eugene for the spring game, and then he announced his top five. And then shortly after that, he said, "Hey, I'm ready to announce my commitment." And here we are. Just as the month of May gets underway, the Ducks are picking up more steam on the recruiting trail. So let's kind of peel back the layers here with this commitment. One interesting thing that I learned after talking to Dickey following his commitment was that this new Oregon staff really helped ultimately make Oregon a contender and then obviously get the job done. Dickey talked about how when he was growing up, he was always thinking about Oregon. He actually idolized a certain Duck that we'll talk about in a little bit here. But he grew up, thinking about Oregon, and he came out to Oregon his 8th grade freshman year. And he really kind of didn't like it as much as he, I think, thought he would. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but then he gets into the recruiting process, and Oregon wasn't that much of a contender for him. But then here comes the new staff led by Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham, Junior Adams, just to name a few, and they really got his attention, and they made him a priority. The previous staff under Mario Cristobal brought Dickey into Eugene a couple times for visits, but I think that really this staff came in, they got the job, and then they wasted no time making him a priority, which ultimately paid off, seeing that they landed his commitment here, right? And I think that Lanning being a young coach, a lot of these other coaches on the staff being young coaches really helped. Dickey was telling me that Lanning, he's young and he's just relating to recruits on a whole nother level, which is definitely some encouraging returns to hear if you're an Oregon fan that maybe had some hesitation about hiring a head coach that was so young. But we've said it before, somebody's got to give him that chance. And Rob Mullins and the Oregon Ducks ended up being that someone who gave and are giving Dan Lanning his first chance as a head coach. But yeah, really Lanning, Junior Adams, Kenny Dillingham, they all really did, kind of a three-headed monster type of attack here on this recruit. In this recruitment, Tosh Lupoi was another person that was mentioned after Dickey made his commitment. So they really went full steam ahead on his recruitment and were able to connect with him to get the job done. But I talked about connecting with, a former Oregon Duck, and that was D'Anthony Thomas, actually. I was talking to Jurian, and he was telling me a little bit about his recent visit to Oregon for the spring game. And he was saying that he was leaving his hotel room one day and, going to do, whatever it was that the staff had, set up for him on the visit. And he runs into D'Anthony Thomas, and he was saying he grew up idolizing D'Anthony Thomas. That's his idol. Before every game, before every Pop Warner game, he would throw on some D'Anthony Thomas highlights. And he saw him in person, and it was just crazy because then he got to his visit. He got to the facilities during his visit, and they were saying, "Oh, hey, D'Anthony, you met Jurrion." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, we met earlier." So that was just kind of a whirlwind for him, and he was saying, the love that he developed for the program, and the fact that the staff was able to connect with his mom on such a great level. He was saying that was huge for him. His mom isn't super emotional, but the fact that they were able to kind of draw those emotions out of her, and really show that he was going to be able to have success at a place like Oregon was really really a big deal. And then after meeting D'Anthony Thomas and running into him, he said, "Hey, I mean, that kind of gave me the signs, and I thought that this was my school and this was the place to be." So cool little insight there that I learned just today after talking to him about that spring game visit, and that visit really sealed the deal. I was talking about Dillingham, and Dick and Jurrion was telling me more about why he was so excited about what Oregon has in store. We saw the offense in that spring game. If you guys were watching, they were throwing it all over the field, getting their playmakers involved. Troy Franklin is another big playmaker for the Ducks. Obviously, he's also an East Palo Alto native, so I'm sure that relationship helped get Dickey in the fold and keep that pipeline to Northern California and California as a whole still flowing. But on the recruiting trail right now, Junior Adams is doing pretty well for himself, I would say. I think that when he got hired, he definitely had some big shoes to fill. I think we've talked about that before, right? With Brian McClendon bringing some really, really highly rated recruits in Dante Thornton, Troy Franklin, Isaiah Brevard. Bringing all those guys to Eugene, he definitely showed that you can bring some pretty big name wideouts to Eugene. And since Junior Adams took over under Dan Lanning as the wide receiver coach, the Ducks have landed 4 receivers now. That's Justice Lowe, who was formerly committed to Utah, but obviously getting that Oregon offer made the things interesting for him. Chase Cota, the UCLA transfer, who just looks like he's going to be a guy in this offense. If that spring game is any indication, I feel like it's probably a safe bet to think that he's going to start, but we are still just in May, so we have to see what happens in fall camp and then what happens in early on in the season. But you're going to need a veteran like that when you're going up against a team like Georgia, and even though they're young and they lost a lot of guys from that historic defense, they're going to be reloaded because they just stack elite talent year after year. So Chase Cota is going to be a guy to watch this upcoming year without a doubt. And then Kyler Casper, who reclassified from 2023 to 2022, coming out of Arizona, going to really help the Ducks in 22 as far as just adding depth to that room. And then today we had Jurrion Dickey, and both Kyler Casper and Jurrion Dickey are just elite athletes. I mean, Dickey is a guy who has 3-sport background. Count them 1, 2, 3. Got football. He's played some basketball. Also participates in track and field. So just some of the basketball clips that I've seen from him, he's just somebody who has that explosiveness as an athlete, and you certainly see that on the field as well. I think that Dickey, from just a little bit of the evaluation to get into that here, he's someone who really makes a name for himself as a yards after the catch guy. Get the ball in space or just running past the defense and getting some serious yards through the air. But then also just the guy is just a freak athlete. I mean, his athleticism is just impossible to miss. I was talking to his coach today when I saw him at the commitment ceremony, and I was just say, hey, give me just a second here and give me your coach's take, your evaluation of what makes Jurrion so special. And he wasted no time. It took him no time at all to just say, man, this dude's athleticism is just different. And you see that on his film. I think he had over 1,000 yards, 1,304 yards, I think was the exact number. I wrote that a couple times today, so I think I remember that. 19 receiving touchdowns. And then he also added 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a pick 6, I want to say. So Jurrion's just a serious athlete, and he's somebody that really won a lot of 50-50 balls that I think is getting that is who wouldn't want that, right? A guy who's kind of just a little bit of a matchup nightmare, and someone who has that physicality to go up and get the ball and then make something happen after that. So you can kind of get him involved in a variety of plays, whether it be sweeps, short to intermediate stuff over the middle, or really lining up outside where you can be physical with the defensive backs and, win those hand fights and get open and create separation. So this is just a huge get for the Ducks. The first offensive player in this 2023 class, I think that's kind of an interesting little smaller storyline here, It would have been Kyler Casper because he reclassified. Now it is Jurrion. So that's a heck of a way to start your offensive side of the ball. Big get for Junior Adams, big get for Kenny Dillingham. Super important for those guys to get rolling on the recruiting trail, just to keep building that excitement, keep building that buzz. Ducks are still looking for a quarterback, though, and this is where this commitment got a little interesting, because I asked Jurian after he committed, now that you're committed, you said that, there's some big things coming for Oregon as far as, they got some big guys coming and future recruiting classes. And I said, who do you want to join you? And he said he wants Jaden Rashada to join him, saying that, they're really tight. He's like, that's my quarterback, and, I'm his receiver. We've really connected well on the camp circuit, and they're good friends. So Jurrion knows as well as Oregon fans do, and I'm sure the Oregon staff knows just how huge of a get Rashada would be. But things are getting super interesting in that recruitment, just as far as all the buzz that he's attracting from across the country. Got a dream offer, is what he called it, from Texas A&M. Some of my work colleagues at SI All-American caught up with Jaden at the Elite 11 in Las Vegas, where he punched his ticket to the Elite 11 finals. So got a dream offer to Texas A&M. There figures that they're going to be getting a visit. He made his way out to LSU after taking a recent official visit to Ole Miss that same weekend that Oregon had their spring game. So that was kind of something that caught a couple people by surprise and was a bit of a significant development on the recruiting trail. But I think the Ducks are still in a good position to get a visit from him later this spring. Looks like he wants to take all of his official visits rather, before he comes to a decision, but he's not going to rush that. He's been very vocal about that. So, man, getting a guy like Jurrion Dickey, someone who's the number 2 player, I believe, in NorCal, Jaden Rashada is the number 1 player in NorCal. It's not everything to have a guy who's from someone else's area, with both those guys being from Northern California, but certainly doesn't hurt, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want to, lean into that, that childhood friendship as something that you could continue at the college level on the field, getting some success together at Oregon. It's kind of what I'm thinking of. If I'm this Oregon staff, it's kind of trying to work that angle maybe. But then the Ducks also brought in Dante Moore in the preliminary buzz out of that visit. He's a 5-star quarterback from the Midwest. That was huge to, keep working on him as Rashada is far from a done deal, and he's not nearing a decision right now. So it's important for Oregon to keep their options open, and they're still working on both of those guys who are tremendously high profile guys. So Ducks are still very much working on getting a quarterback. And once they get that, I feel like that could really help add some juice to this recruiting class. We saw what happened when Ty Thompson committed to Oregon. It's kind of created a domino effect. But while that, maybe it's worth saying that while Oregon is looking to add a quarterback, one way to strengthen your pitch for an elite quarterback is putting good pieces around him. Hey, we're going to get you a good offensive line. We're going to get you good receivers, a good running back to hand the ball off to. Ducks are already loaded at running back, with Marquise Irving being the latest addition in that running back room, coming over from Minnesota, that I alluded to at the top here. But just to kind of give some final thoughts on Dickey, I mean, this is a huge, huge addition. Junior Adams is obviously also recruiting him at Washington, so that relationship carried over to Eugene very well. Junior Adams is from Fremont, and Jurrion's from East Palo Alto, so they definitely can relate to both being Bay Area guys. But huge addition for the Ducks to get things rolling on this wide receiver class. You can never have too many talented guys at the skill position, so he's a guy that I think could certainly push for early playing time. And I think that he can really thrive in this new Kenny Dillingham offense that's just predicated on getting these playmakers involved, getting the ball to guys in space. But looking ahead, what's next for Oregon now? They're still in the running for a couple guys as far as the wide receiver position, so some people to keep an eye on. Rasheed Williams, he's a teammate of Jaden Rashada. He's a wide receiver at Pittsburgh High School out in the East Bay area. I actually talked to him over the weekend. And he's got Callum Washington on him pretty hard. I think I would say that Cal is the leader right now, but he was recently out to Oregon, and he had some good things to say. I have that interview posted on my YouTube channel, Oregon Football Max Torres. Make sure you guys go check it out. Jaden Doss, another wide receiver out of the Missouri area. He was recently on campus in Oregon for a visit. Levon Brown out of Las Vegas. He's another guy to keep an eye on. So we'll see if the Ducks can keep pushing for some elite names on the recruiting trail. But wanted to make sure I got on here to break down this commitment. Have my commitment interview with Jurrion over on Ducks Digest. So make sure you guys check that out and subscribe to Ducks Digest if you haven't already. And just talking a little bit more about what his commitment means for Oregon. But that's going to do it for us here on this episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. Like I said, head on over to ducksdigest.com for your latest and greatest in Oregon news and Oregon recruiting. But appreciate you guys for tuning in wherever you're tuned in, whether it be podcasting or YouTube. And make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at mtorresports. You can find the latest updates there, and it's definitely a lot more timely than YouTube or recording a podcast. But don't want to banter too much here, guys, or ramble too much. It's getting late, but wanted to hop on here and break down this latest big commitment for the Oregon Ducks on the recruiting trail in the class of 2023. Jurrion Dickey will be a Duck. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.